Hello. So for my final project, I'm going to do a sample research guide that I would show to middle school students if they were working on a research paper. This is going to be useful when I become a librarian. A lot of times teachers will utilize the library and their librarians to help with research, so this could be a good starting point. So for this sample, I was going to have an example of a student doing a persuasive essay, and their topic would be violent video games and how those affect children. They have a negative or positive effect on them. So for a persuasive essay, students need to take a stance, so they need to gather general information about the topic along with information that they could use to sway an opinion. I'd start by going over primary and secondary sources. Primary sources are first-hand materials that can be research. They can be poems, diaries, court records, interviews, surveys. And secondary sources are any sources that describe or analyze primary sources. So dictionaries, encyclopedias, textbooks, books, and any articles that interpret a primary source. I'd also go over the domain suffixes because those are very important, especially if students are using Google or Google Scholar or just using the internet to find sources. So I'd go over the main ones. That .com is a commercial site. These can be credible, but they can have an agenda, so they need to be looked at closely. .net is an internet site. These can also be good sources, but they can also be unreliable depending on who wrote it. .gov is a government site. These are usually reliable because they are information from the government. .edu is an educational site from a school or university, and these usually have credible information, but they still should be examined carefully depending on who wrote it. And .org is an organization. A lot of the times they're nonprofit organizations. These can be credible and very opinionated. So all of these, basically besides .gov, need to be looked at intensely to decide who's writing it and why. I'd also cover Boolean operators. They can use these to develop search strings, and using the Boolean operator and narrows your search and it'll only find results with the listed keywords, or broadens your search. It can find similar or relative terms, and it'll either locate all of your terms or none. And not narrows your search. This will only find results with one term and not the other. So it'll find results with the word before not and not the word after. So when putting together search strings, you want to look for synonyms of your keywords in your topic. So if our topic is how violent video games affect children, some of the keywords we could use for violent are aggressive, harsh, rough, brutal. For video games, it might be computer games, online games, digital games. And if we're wanting to know the effects of them, we could use effects of, impact of, outcome of, or consequences would all be good. And for children, you could say adolescents, kids, teens, and young adults. And for formatting, most middle schools ask students to use the MLA format. So they would be using some note cards or some form of tracking worksheet to keep track of all the sources they use. So for this example, I'm using OSU's library's website. So what I did was came to databases, and for this example, I'm going to use EBSCO because that is a pretty common database in schools. And for this, you can select some of the ones you want to use. And for this one, I'm going to select Academic Search Elite, Academic Search Premier. Let's see. I'm going to use Eric. and the library, the LISTA, library information and technology abstracts. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the psych articles and psych info. Then you're going to continue. And since our topic is violent video games and their effects, you might start with the basic violent video games effect on children and just see what that gives us. We got 109 results, so that's actually really good. And you can also use limiters over here. You can do full text and make sure that you're only getting peer-reviewed journals. So that took us down even more. And also you can limit it to academic journals, books, and other things. So we got 53 right here. Effects. This one looks like a good one. This one looks like a good one. We'll go ahead and click on this one. And if you're wanting, you can see the linked full text here. So you have that, and you can get the PDF if you need. Also, EBSCO is nice because if you're needing to cite it, they'll give you the citations right there to help you keep track. You can add it to a folder, and you can also use the smart text searching to find similar results. But just to show examples, I'm going to go ahead and try to use some of those Boolean operators. So let's do violent video games and effects or impacts and children. And see what we get. And that gave us 189, and it looks like a lot of the same ones. So let's go ahead and just do academic journals. And that's 184. And this one looks like another good one. So like I said, you can get the linked full text, you can see the citations, or you can add it to a folder. Now, if students are wanting to just use the internet, they can always just go to Google or Google Scholar. Let's go ahead and try that search in Google. Violent video games. Hold on, let's try this. Effects of violent video games on children. And let's see what we get. And here you can already see we're finding those websites that are organizations, the commercial sites. And let's go ahead and follow this link, scholarly articles. And since we're using Google, we got a lot more results, 161,000. So if we wanted to narrow this down, we could do violent video games and effects and children and see what we get. And that narrowed it down a little bit, 146,000. Let's look at this one. And as you can see, this is right here. Some of them you'll actually need to, you won't have access to. That's the only thing about using Google. This one's a book, so let's look at this. That was not working. Let's see, let's look at this one. So this one's just giving you the abstract. You might be able to export that, but that's the thing. The kids are just gonna have to play around with it and see how many good sources they can come up with. And let's look at one of these websites to see what we get. Okay, so you want to look at who's writing it, what organization, the date, and it looks like this one has some good information. And just based off of the organization, it looks credible. So this could be a good one that students use in their research. And now it's redirecting me. Let's see. Let's look at one of the commercial sites. So this one is from Psychology Today. It looks like it was from 2015. And this one has a lot of information. And it was by Eileen Kennedy Moore, and she does have a PhD and provides references. So this could also be a credible website for students to use. But going back, if you need to, it's okay to change your keywords and add in the different Boolean operators and switch out the keywords that you use. So this is just an example of a research guide that I would put together for students and for teachers. Obviously, I would elaborate on it more, but I think that this is a good start.